Good day and welcome back to the channel. I'm Lee Johnson and looking a bit shaggy today. I do apologise. So today I want to talk about Enns. A lot of people have come into demonolatry for the first time, are a bit confused about what the Enns are because it's not a term that's used in any other tradition I've actually come across. So what are they? What do we do with them? Why do we use them? Let's talk about that. Okay, so an N is basically an incantation, and you'll find that the language that's used looks a bit confusing. It's not anything that you will find in any languages on the planet, as far as I know. And as far as my studies have taken me, it's possibly a dead language, possibly a demonic language. And these ends actually come about when people work with specific demons and they are given the N in order to actually call that demon. And in a lot of cases, and you'll find it in S. Connolly's work mostly, the ends have been passed on and made public, or some of them at least. I won't say all of them have been made public. Sometimes it's a bit private. When you work closely with a spirit, any spirit, whether it is a demon or whether it's a god or goddess from a different pantheon, there's a personal relationship that happens, and in that personal relationship, you may get a specific name in order to work with them, or you may get a specific incantation, chant, N, in order to call them. It's kind of like a telephone number, actually. But there's something very personal and very specific that you are given. It may be a sigil, for instance, that is specifically for you, so that when you draw it, you call on that spirit. And it's that personal connection that happens. Now, these ends, which are made public, they can be used by anybody. And they are very, very handy, very, very useful. And it's actually one of the reasons I like demonolatry so much. It's kind of simplified, and I do like the simplified approach. There are some rites in demonolatry which get a bit more involved, a bit more complicated. But generally, working with the demons is actually simple, and all of the methods I've used over the years in the past, of all of those methods, using the sigil and the N has just been the best. The one method that actually brings results, and brings results easily, brings results tangibly. I think sometimes when we get a bit too involved with a ritual, occasionally, it depends from person to person, but occasionally what happens is you get so involved in the ritual that you get more involved in the ritual than the actual outcome you're looking for. The ritual itself is designed in order to actually create a certain energy within yourself. It's supposed to invoke a certain aspect, bring you into a certain space, usually a liminal space, space between. But, and through that process, you can obviously then communicate and work with the spirit quite easily. But I think a lot of people find that they get so involved in the ritual itself that the other aspects kind of falls by the wayside. So bringing a very simple approach, simple and effective, is always good. So that's why I actually like this method. So when you're calling the spirits, and you use the ends when you're doing circle construction, whether it's the elemental circle or if you're using the 9 divinities, You know, whatever circle construct you're using with the demonic, you are going to be using the Enns. And there's various ways you can actually use the Enns, actually, you know, speak them, chant them, you know, any way you actually feel is appropriate at the time and suits you personally. You can chant them, you can vibrate them, you can whisper them, you can sing them. So sometimes you might find that you might start chanting an Enn, and then all of a sudden a tune will come out of your mouth, and a tune will actually start to develop around the Enn itself. So then you start singing it. Don't stop that. If you feel you're supposed to be chanting the Enn and not singing it, just let the energy flow. Let the energy do what it needs to do, and that's usually the spirit itself that is coming through and just wants to make itself known, but also wants to just boost the signal, really. So it may start changing the Enn. You may find that you are chanting the Enn over and over and over again, and then it becomes a whisper, and then it becomes a growl. Quite often when I'm doing this, it does become a growl. It's a very, very deep, almost, I swear I could be a death metal band or something sometimes. But just let that happen. Let the energy flow the way it needs to flow in order to do the work. So I'm not going to get into how to vibrate. I did mention that in a previous video a while back. If I remember correctly, it was the video on working the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram. I spoke about how to vibrate the names of power. But you know, I think the easiest way to actually learn to vibrate is first to hum. So what you can do is just hum some of the words, and then after you're humming, you actually hum the words internally, kind of, and then you actually bring it out. So if you take lirak, for instance, lirak, and then you just continue with the rest of it. But as I say, you can just simply chant it. You can just chant it over and over and over again. You get into a rhythm, which then brings you into a trance state. And that may then become a whisper. Whispering is actually quite interesting. Whispering, if you say something loud, sometimes it creates a distraction. If you say something silently, it also creates a distraction. So a whisper actually is kind of in between there, and it's actually very useful often for working with names of power, working with the Enns, working with incantations. But yeah, so the Enns themselves, to really put it basically, it's kind of like a telephone number or a mobile number that you use. You know, you dial on your mobile, you punch in a number and you phone somebody and you speak to them. It's the same type of principle. So you use the Enn in order to call the spirit, and then the spirit comes into your presence, and you'll probably feel a change in atmosphere. You might feel a tingling in your body. You might feel a warmth or a coldness around your shoulders. It's always comforting. But you might feel that warmth or that coldness. There's some kind of change that happens. You might see the spirit, you might hear the spirit. Depends if you're clairaudient or clairvoyant or clairsentient or clair whatever you are. You might smell something. So there's something that happens, and there's always usually a change in the atmosphere. It can become, depending on what spirit you're working with, it can become thicker, it can become lighter. It's just that change that happens. For me, it's always it's always a sort of like a nice heavy blanket that goes over my shoulders. Then after that, depending on the spirit, my arms may tingle. I may get a cold around my neck. Something else will happen. But with all of them, it seems to be this blanket that kind of gets put over me. Very comforting, very warming. But that's basically what happens when you use N. So you take the sigil of the spirit. You put a drop or two of your blood onto the sigil, and then you can gaze at the sigil, or you can keep it in your mind's eye, and you just start chanting the N, or vibrating the N, or singing the N, and letting that develop into whatever the energy takes you into. And then you'll start feeling the presence. When you start feeling the presence, you can carry on chanting, or you can stop and you can speak to the spirit, depending on what you want to do, what type of work you're doing, and that type of stuff. So if you're doing spell work, or charging of a talisman, or doing specific sigil work or something like that, once the presence of the spirit has come in, then you can do your work. Then afterwards you just say thank you. Thank you for coming, thank you for helping, and just, a farewell of some kind. You can say hail and farewell, or you can say go if you must, stay if you will, drive safely, whatever suits you. And that's it really. So that's the N. The N is just the telephone number of a demon. So I hope to see everybody on Friday. Just, if you can join us for the chat, it's at 4 p.m. GMT. It's a mystery of what we're going to be talking about this week. I'm not going to let you know. Some things have to be mysterious every now and again. But yeah, just come along if you can. Join us in the chats, ask questions, say hello. Comment on Kai's blue hair, whatever you want to do. And yeah, hope to see you there. Otherwise, I'll see you next Tuesday. Hope you enjoyed the video. Cheers.